Shackles in the dark. The mines of Veltrax 9 were cold, dark, and cruel. Deep underground, machines roared day and night. Sharp rocks fell from the ceilings. The air was thick with smoke and dust. Only slaves worked here, beaten, starved, forgotten. Among them was a girl named Jera. She was not human. Her skin was light blue. Her hair was silver, now tangled and dirty. Her wrists were bruised from the metal shackles that held her. Every day she woke up on the cold stone floor, chained to the wall like an animal. No one spoke to her. No one cared if she cried. To the guards, she was just Unit 12. But Jera had a name, a family, a past. She just couldn't remember all of it anymore. Pain and silence had stolen her memories. One day, a new human arrived at the mine. His name was Callan Voss. He wore a black soldier's uniform and carried a plasma rifle. He wasn't like the cruel guards. He didn't shout. He didn't laugh when the slaves fell. He just watched, quiet, cold, still. Jera saw him from behind the bars of her cage. He looked at her for only a second, but his eyes did not hold hate, and that was strange, because every other human only saw her as worthless. That night, after the work shifts ended, Jera was dragged back to her cage. Her legs were weak. She fell once and a guard kicked her in the ribs. "Get up, freak," he spat. She didn't cry. She had stopped crying a long time ago. Inside the cage, she curled up, trembling. Her stomach hurt. She hadn't eaten in 2 days. Her throat was dry. Her body ached. Then she heard a sound. Footsteps. Slow. Careful. Someone stopped outside her cage. She looked up. It was the new soldier, Callan. He stood there, watching her through the bars. His face had no smile, but his eyes, they were different. Like he was thinking, like he saw something others didn't. Jera blinked. Her lips were cracked. Her voice was a whisper. "Why? Do you look at me like I matter?" Callan didn't answer. He looked left and right. Then slowly he reached into his pack and took out a water canister. He pushed it through the bars. Jera stared at it. "No tricks," he said quietly. "Just drink." Her hands shook as she grabbed the canister and drank. The water was cold, clean. It tasted like life. She looked up at him again, confused. "Why are you helping me?" Still, he said nothing. He just stood there and watched her. Then, without a word, he turned and walked away. The next day, Jera was forced to carry heavy metal crates. Her arms were weak. The guards shouted. One of them threw a whip. It hit her back. She fell. "Lazy alien." The guard yelled. Callan saw it happen. He didn't move, but his hand clenched into a fist. That night he returned to her cage again. This time he brought a small piece of bread, old and dry, but food. Jera ate slowly, her hands trembling. "Thank you," she said. Callan leaned against the bars. His voice was low. "You're not a criminal, are you?" She shook her head. "No. I was on a science ship. We were peaceful. They attacked us, took me." "Why didn't they register you?" he asked. "They said I wasn't human, so I didn't count." Silence. Jera looked into his eyes. "Will you leave me here like the others?" Callan looked down. Then he turned away again, but this time he whispered something before walking off. "No one deserves chains." Jera sat in the dark after he left. Her hands still hurt. Her body was weak, but something strange burned inside her chest. Hope. A small flame. Faint, but real. For the first time in years, someone had spoken to her like she was human. For the first time, she began to wonder, what if someone could set her free? A glance that changed everything. The next morning on Veltrax 9 started with thunder from the rock drills. The walls shook, smoke filled the air. Slaves marched out in chains, their eyes hollow like ghosts. Jera was among them, limping, silent, her wrists bleeding under the heavy metal cuffs. The guards barked orders like always, but today something was different. Callan Voss was watching. He stood on the upper platform, rifle on his back, helmet off. His face was calm, but his eyes were sharp, scanning everything. He wasn't like the others. The guards laughed at pain. Callan didn't. He didn't smile. He didn't joke. But when he looked at Jera, something flickered in his eyes again. Recognition? Pity? No. Something deeper. Jera looked up at him just for a second. That single glance changed everything. Later that evening, Callan entered the security room where the other soldiers played card games and drank cheap fire wine. "You're quiet," said Corporal Tresh, the loudest of the group. "Still thinking about the blue rat in cell 12? "Her name is Jera," Callan said coldly. The room fell silent. Tresh raised an eyebrow. "You learning alien names now, soldier?" "She's not a criminal," Callan said. "She was taken from a civilian science vessel. I checked the records." Tresh chuckled. "She's property now. Doesn't matter where she came from." Callan stood still, then quietly said, "She matters to someone." The laughter stopped. Tresh leaned forward, voice sharper now. "Careful, Voss. You start caring, you start dying. We're not here to make friends. We're here to keep order." Callan met his gaze without blinking. "Sometimes order is the real crime." He left the room. That night, cameras showed him walking to cell 12 again. Jera sat alone in her cage, her legs drawn to her chest. She no longer cried. Her tears were gone. But when she heard his footsteps, her heart beat faster. He came again. This time he brought nothing, no water, no food, just words. "I checked the logs. You weren't supposed to be here." Jera looked up, surprised. "My ship. The Alari Dawn. They destroyed it," she whispered. Callan nodded. "I found a piece of the wreckage. Your people had no weapons, just scanners and starlight charts." "We were peaceful," Jera said, her voice cracking. Callan crouched beside the bars. "You don't belong in chains." She smiled faintly. "Neither do you. Your soul is too heavy." He was stunned. No one had ever said that to him. Jera tilted her head. "You were a soldier before this. You've seen war." "I've survived war," he corrected. "Surviving isn't the same as living." Silence stretched between them. Then she leaned forward and whispered, "If you ever set me free, I'll show you the stars." Callan stood up. He walked away, without another word, but something inside him shifted. For years he had followed orders, watched innocent people be broken. Now, one alien girl behind rusted bars had broken him. The next day, the miners were sent into the lowest pit of Veltrax, the Heat Hollow, a place where even robots refused to go. The slaves had no choice. Jera collapsed twice. Her knees were scraped, her skin burned. The guards didn't care. Callan was assigned to guard the upper cliff. He watched as Jera was beaten for moving too, slowly. He gritted his teeth. Then it happened. One of the guards pushed her too hard. Jera fell, straight toward the fire pit. She screamed. Callan jumped. He leapt down from the platform, crashing hard onto the rocks below. He grabbed Jera just before she hit the flames. He rolled over, taking the brunt of the fall. The guards rushed down, shouting, "What are you doing?" "She slipped," Callan barked. "I saved her." "You'd rather explain a dead slave to command?" The guards hesitated. Callan stood up, lifting Jera in his arms. She was shaking. Eyes wide, he whispered, "You're safe for now." That night in the command office, an officer reviewed the footage. "Why would a soldier risk his life for a slave ring?" he asked, staring at the screen. No one answered, but across the camp, Callan was already back at her cage, silently watching her sleep. And for the first time, Jera dreamed of freedom. Not as a wish, but as something real. The silent escape. The wind howled through the steel corridors of Veltrax 9. Somewhere above the surface, A dust storm was ripping across the mining base, but underground, inside the prison halls, the air was thick with something else. Tension. Callan. Voss walked slowly through the security tunnel. Every step was careful, every turn calculated. He knew how to move when cameras weren't watching. He knew the exact second the drone patrol passed by. After all, he had helped design the schedule, but tonight he wasn't doing his job. Tonight, he was breaking every rule. Inside cell 12, Jera sat in the dark. Her arms were wrapped around her knees, and her mind was full of worry. Her body still ached from the last shift. She had not seen Callan since he jumped into the heat hollow to save her. Had he been punished? Was he dead? She feared the answer. Then, a click. Her eyes opened wide. The cell door creaked, and there he stood. Callan. He stepped in quickly and held a finger to his lips. Quiet. Jera stared at him, confused. What are you doing? Freeing you, he said. He knelt down and pulled out a magnetic key. The shackles on her ankles clicked open. Jera gasped as her legs fell loose for the first time in years. She tried to stand but collapsed. Callan caught her. We don't have much time. He whispered. I disabled the outer cameras, but the inner patrols rotate every 5 minutes. Why are you doing this? She asked, breathless. He looked into her eyes. Because you're not a slave. You never were. They slipped into the lower cargo corridor. Jera leaned on him as she walked. Her legs were weak, but her heart pounded strong. As they moved past the old supply crates, Jera's foot caught a wire. Snap. A red light blinked on the wall. Callan froze. Motion alarm. Suddenly sirens began to blare. Boop, boop, boop. Security breach in level 3. Callan grabbed her hand. Run! They rushed through the narrow tunnels. Lights flashed red. Metal doors slammed shut behind them. Voices yelled through the comms. Target. Escaped slave with armed soldier. Neutralize on sight. Jera could barely breathe. Her legs burned. Her mind raced. She had dreamt of escape. But now it was real. And it was terrifying. They reached a service elevator. Callan smashed the controls. The platform rose, slow and loud. Guards were coming. Jera looked up at him. You'll die for me, she said. He nodded. If I must. She pressed her forehead against his. You are not like the others. No, he said. I chose not to be. They reached the upper hangar bay. Callan's ship, a small scout cruiser, was already prepped. Fuel loaded. Weapons offline for stealth. As they approached the ramp, a gunshot rang out. Jera screamed. Callan fell to one knee, blood spreading across. His shoulder, 3 guards charged from behind a crate. Get her, one of them shouted. Jera turned, tears in her eyes. She stood between Callan and the guards. No more. She whispered. Something inside her pulsed. The air bent. A strange force rippled from her body. The guards flew backward, slammed into the walls by invisible hands. Callan stared, stunned. Jera, what was that? I don't know, she said, shaking. But I felt your pain. I couldn't let them hurt you. He pulled her up the ramp. Whatever it is, we'll figure it out. Together. Inside the ship, Jera helped him strap, and blood dripped from his wound, but he managed to start the engine. The hangar door opened. More guards ran in. Gunfire erupted, but it was too late. The ship blasted off into the sky. Jera watched the prison fade below. Her chains were gone. The stars were ahead. She wasn't just running anymore. She was becoming. Between death and freedom. The stars outside. The ship's window shimmered like cold fire. Inside, the ship was quiet. Too quiet. Callan Voss sat in the pilot seat, pale from blood loss. His shoulder was badly wounded. Sweat covered his face. He kept flying, one hand on the controls, the other pressing a cloth against the bleeding wound. Behind him, Jera worked, fast, She had never seen a human up close before. Now she was trying to stop one from dying. She tore off part of her cloak and wrapped it around his shoulder. Her hands trembled. "You saved me," she whispered. "Now let me save you." Callan gave a weak smile. "Not how I planned it, but I'll take it." She helped him lie down in the back of the ship. He groaned, then passed out. Jera sat beside him, holding a small medkit she had found in the storage compartment. She looked at his face, strong, scarred, but soft in sleep. Her heart twisted. She had never felt this way before. Not about anyone. Not even the people she lost. The ship floated through deep space, heading toward an old signal beacon that Callan had set long ago. It led them to a forgotten moon. HFY, a dead rock covered in snow and shadows. The ship landed roughly between two frozen mountains. No cities, no signals, no people, just silence and cold wind. But to Jera, it felt safe. Days passed. Jera built a small fire outside the ship, using heat stones from Callan's supply crate. She gathered food packs, melted ice for water, wrapped Callan in old blankets. She stayed by his side, every single hour. And slowly, he began to heal. On the fourth night, Callan finally opened his eyes. Jera smiled. "You're awake." "You didn't leave," he whispered. "I told you we escaped together." "Or not at all." He looked at her with tired but grateful eyes. "How did you survive all those years in the mine?" She stared at the fire. "I stopped thinking. I stopped feeling. I just existed." He reached out, gently taking her hand. "But now you're more alive than anyone I've ever known." She looked at their hands, hers blue and glowing slightly, his rough and scarred. "Do you think I'm strange?" she asked. "No," he said. "I think you're becoming something more." Later that night, Jera stood outside the ship, staring at the stars. The wind blew her silver hair across her face. She raised her hand, focused. Suddenly, the snow around her began to rise. Tiny flakes floated upward, spinning slowly. Her breath caught. She moved her fingers. The flakes followed. She closed her hand. They stopped. She opened it. They fell like dust. She gasped. "What am I?" The next morning, she told Callan what happened. "I felt something," she said. "Like energy around me. And when I reached out, it listened." Callan didn't look surprised. "You were different even before we escaped. I saw it in your eyes," she frowned. "What does it mean?" "I don't know," he said. "But someone will." He pulled up a small hologram from his wrist console, a map of nearby systems. "There's a man," he said. "Dr. Tavik. Used to be with the Alliance, then vanished. People say he helps hybrids, runaways, anyone with strange gifts." Jera leaned forward. "You trust him?" Callan nodded. "I don't trust many people. But him? He once saved me." Jera looked at the stars again. "What if I'm dangerous?" she whispered. Callan touched her shoulder gently. "You already were dangerous, to the people who chained you. Now you can be dangerous for good." That night, as they prepared to leave Kale 4, Jera stood in front of the mirror inside the ship. For the first time, she didn't see a slave. She saw a survivor, a fighter, and maybe something more, something powerful. Back in the pilot seat, Callan activated the engine. "Next stop," he said, "the edge of the galaxy." Jera smiled. "Then let's find out who I really am." The stars opened before them again, but they didn't know they were already being followed. The price of kindness. The ship cut across the edge of the Dravari Belt, a dangerous sector filled with old war wreckage and dead satellites, the perfect place to hide. But Callan knew the truth. They were being hunted. Inside the ship, Jera sat, on the floor with her eyes closed. Around her, small tools floated in the air, spinning slowly, perfectly balanced. A wrench, a bolt, a metal chip. She moved her fingers like she was painting in the air. Then she opened her eyes. Everything dropped. She gasped, holding her head. Her skin shimmered for a second, then faded. Callan entered the room, holding a mug of heated rations. "Headache again?" he asked. She nodded. "It's getting worse." He sat beside her. "You're using your gift too much. Rest." Jara looked at him. "I don't think it's a gift anymore. I think something inside me is changing, like I'm not who I was before." Callan touched her shoulder gently. "You're still you, Jara. The world may fear what you can do, but I never will." But the world was watching, or rather, hunting. A transmission had leaked. Escaped Veltrax. Slave traveling with rogue soldier. Wanted alive, large bounty. Name, Jara Valminari. Reward, 500,000 credits. On a nearby outlaw station called Iron Reach, that message was seen by many eyes. One pair belonged to Captain Roke, a cyber-augmented bounty hunter with half a skull made of steel and a glowing red eye. He cracked his knuckles and smiled. Time to collect. Hours later, Jara's ship, the ship alarm, blinked softly. Motion detected. Callan rushed to the cockpit. "They've found us." Jara stood behind him. "How many?" He checked the screen. "One large hunter ship. Docking clamps active. They're trying to pull us in." She placed her hand on the console. The lights flickered. Then the ship shook. Violently. "They've hit our fuel line," Callan shouted. "We need to land," Jara said. "Anywhere." He punched the nearest coordinates into the system. A small moon, Othar 3, appeared. "Hold tight. Crash landing. Othar 3. The ship slammed into a dense jungle. Trees snapped. Metal screamed. Sparks flew. When the dust settled, Callan crawled out of the wreckage. His arm was bleeding again. Jara staggered out, coughing. But they had no time to rest. A ship descended above the trees. Roke's voice echoed through a loudspeaker. "Turn in the girl, soldier, and I might let you crawl away." Jara's hands trembled. "I won't let them take me again." Callan handed her a small shotgun. "Then we fight." The fight in the jungle. Roke and his men spread through the jungle with scanners and heat trackers. Callan led Jara through the thick trees, ducking under vines, leaping across fallen logs. Suddenly, a flash of red light. A drone exploded overhead. They were spotted. Blaster fire lit the trees. Callan returned fire, hitting one bounty hunter in the leg. Jara screamed as another hunter leapt from above, but she lifted her hand and the man froze in midair. He floated for 3 seconds, then was thrown into a tree like a rag doll. She stared at her hand. What did I just do? The turning point, they reached a rocky hill and stopped. No more cover. Roke himself appeared with 2 soldiers walking calmly up the path. "Give her to me," Roke said, smiling. "She's just a lab rat. One of many." Callan stood in front of her. "Take one more step, and I'll bury you here." You're weak," Roke sneered. He raised his gun. Then Jara stepped out. "No," she said. "He's not weak, but I'm not helpless anymore." Her eyes turned white. The wind exploded, the trees bent backward, the ground cracked. Roke aimed, but his gun melted in his hand. He screamed. Jara lifted both hands. The sky turned violet. The bounty hunters ran. Roke fell to his knees, begging, "Please don't kill me." Jara walked to him, voice calm. "Did you beg for mercy when you dragged others in chains?" He trembled. Then, she turned away. "I won't become what you are." After the storm, the jungle was quiet. Callan limped to her side. "You saved us." Jara was breathing hard, her face pale. "It's too much. I feel like something inside me is breaking apart." Callan held her tight. "You're not breaking, Jara. You're becoming something new, something stronger." She looked at him, eyes full of fear and wonder. "Then we need to know what I am." Before I lose control completely. He nodded. Then we find Dr. Tavik. Zhera unleashed. 2 days later, the ship limped into orbit around Nira Station, a hidden medical outpost built inside a hollowed asteroid. No flashing signs, no traffic lanes, only one glowing signal on the comms channel. Dr. Tavik, medical, genetic, neural systems, clearance, human, and hybrid. Inside the ship, Zhera stood beside the cockpit window, watching the station grow larger. Her eyes were distant. Her hands still shook. Every hour since the jungle, her power had become harder to control. Water boiled near her when she cried. Lights flickered when she was afraid. Gravity bent near her when she slept. She was changing. Fast. The station. They docked in a dark port lit by old yellow lights. Inside, the hallways were quiet and smelled like old metal. A tall man with a silver beard stood at the far end of the corridor. His coat was long, his eyes sharp. "Callan Voss," he said, walking forward. "Didn't expect you to come back after what happened on Orvis Prime." "I didn't come for me," Callan replied. "I came for her." Tavik looked at Zhera. For a moment, he said nothing. Then, "I've seen many like you, but none quite like you." Zhera lowered her head. "Am I a monster?" Tavik walked closer. "You're a key." The test inside the lab. Glowing screens and old data machines surrounded them. Tavik took a blood sample, scanned her brain, watched her use her power to lift a metal cube and shatter it in mid-air. "Your power is tied to emotion," Tavik explained. "But it's more than that." He showed them a hologram. "This," he said, "is what most hybrid brains look like. Half human, half alien, unstable. But this," he pointed to Zhera's scan, "is not hybrid. It's merged. Your DNA didn't mix. It became something new." Zhera stepped back. "New?" Tavik nodded. "You are the first true evolution of two worlds. You feel emotions like a human, but your mind connects like an Ailuri, a species, designed to interface with energy, memory, even matter itself." Callan frowned. "So what does that mean?" Tavik turned serious. "It means she can build or destroy with just a thought. If her heart breaks, so could the stars." Zhera's fear that night. Zhera sat alone in a side room, staring at her hands. Her fingers sparked faintly. "I'm not ready," she whispered. "I didn't ask for this." Callan walked in quietly. He knelt beside her. "You were once locked in chains," he said. "Now you hold more power than anyone I've ever met. You didn't ask for it, but that doesn't make it wrong." She looked at him. "What if I hurt you? What if I can't stop myself?" He took her hand. "Then I'll help you remember who you are." "Who am I?" she asked. He smiled. "Zhera Valminari, the girl who saved a soldier's life and gave him a reason to believe again." The warning suddenly, alarm sounded in the lab. Tavik rushed in. "They found you." "Who?" Callan asked, grabbing his weapon. Tavik showed the signal. "A human. Warship. Fast. Armed. Controlled by a division called Project Ember. They've come to take her," Tavik said. "Or kill her if they can't." Zhera stepped forward. "I won't go back." "No," Tavik said, "you won't. But you need to fight. And this time, without fear." Zhera unleashed. The ship landed. Soldiers poured into the station with heavy rifles and drone support. Zhera walked out to the main platform, her white cloak blowing in the wind. The lead officer raised his weapon. "By order of the Human Council, surrender." Zhera raised her hand. The wind stopped. The air froze. The officer pulled the trigger, but the bullet melted before it left the barrel. Zhera's eyes turned white. Her voice echoed across the station. "No more cages. No more chains." The soldiers screamed as the floor bent beneath them. Drones fell from the sky like dead birds. Zhera floated into the air. She wasn't human. She wasn't alien. She was beyond both. Aftermath. The soldiers were gone. Not dead. Just unconscious. Her choice. Callan rushed to her side. "You controlled it," Zara looked down at her hands. I didn't let fear speak for me this time. Tavik smiled. Then you've passed the test. Zara took a deep breath. I know who I am now. And in the stars above, something stirred, because Project Ember had just watched everything, and now Earth itself was preparing to strike. A name returned to the stars. The sky above Nira Station turned red. Dozens of warships arrived from Earth's high command, sleek, black, and bristling with cannons. Their lights blinked like angry eyes. From orbit, the humans prepared their final move, not to negotiate, to eliminate. At the center of it all, Zara. Inside the station, she stood calmly, eyes closed, feeling every pulse of energy across space. Her mind was wide open now. She could sense emotions, machines, and even time itself. Callan stood at her side, armored and armed. If we run now, we can disappear, he said. Zara looked at him, her voice soft. I won't run anymore. The human command broadcast a voice echoed across all frequencies. To the being known as Zara Valminari, you are classified as a planetary threat. Surrender or be destroyed. Tavik stared at the screen. They fear what they can't control. Zara walked outside the station, stepping into the cold air of the asteroid's outer shell. The stars blinked above her like watching eyes. She spoke softly. I do not come to fight, but I will not bow. The final stand warships began to fire. Laser beams cut through space like lightning. Zara raised her arms. A shield formed, not around her, but around the entire station. Energy pulsed from her fingertips, forming a golden barrier that caught every blast and bent it harmlessly around them. Then she lifted into the sky. She hovered above the asteroid, spinning, glowing, becoming. In orbit, the commander of the Earth fleet shouted, She's controlling gravity itself. She's folding the battlefield. Another officer whispered, We're not fighting a girl. We're fighting evolution. The commander gave the order. All ships, fire. But Zara's mind was already in motion. She whispered a single word. Stop. Every ship paused, frozen, time, stilled, from the smallest drone to the largest. War cruiser, everything stopped. Zara floated through the frozen battlefield. She touched the nearest ship with her hand. The hull healed, the weapons retracted. The crew inside, still alive, still breathing, felt a warmth inside their hearts. Peace. She could have destroyed them. She chose not to. She returned to Nira Station and slowly lowered herself back to the ground. The red lights in the sky faded. One by one, the warships turned and left. No message, no apology. But the meaning was clear. They would never come back. 1 week later, across the galaxy, Zara's name spread like a starburst across every screen, every station, every world. The girl who could bend time. She who walked through fire and chose mercy. The one who broke chains then chose to heal. People whispered her name with respect. Children painted stars with silver hair and violet eyes. And across broken colonies, slaves raised their heads in hope. A school beneath the sky. Months passed. In a peaceful valley on a green moon, a strange school was built. Not with bricks, but with light and living stone. Here, young children, human, alien, hybrid, learned to control power. To feel, to listen, to grow. At the heart of it all stood Zara. Her robe was simple. Her smile was warm. Beside her, Callan taught the students how to defend what matters without hate. And once a week, Tavik visited with new minds to train. Zara had become more than a survivor, more than a weapon. She had become a guide. A name returned to the stars. One evening, a student asked her, Teacher, why didn't you destroy them when you had the chance? Zara smiled gently. Because they already live in fear. I chose to live in freedom. She looked up at the stars glowing soft above her. I once had no name, she whispered. But now, the galaxy will never forget it.